Hey everyone, welcome back to Knowsense Psychology. Today, we're diving deep into a fascinating topic, the psychology of people who delete social media. In a world where nearly everyone is online, those who decide to step away from social platforms often have deeper, more meaningful psychological reasons behind that choice. It's not just about being tired of scrolling. It's often about transformation, self-awareness, and reclaiming control over one's own mind. So, let's unpack what truly goes on in the minds of people who delete social media. First, one of the biggest psychological shifts happens when a person's self-worth outgrows external validation. Many of us start our social media journeys by sharing moments, achievements, or opinions, seeking acknowledgement through likes, comments, and followers. Over time, however, some people begin to notice that their sense of self is subtly being tied to these metrics. They realize their mood can rise or fall, depending on how much attention they get. When this awareness sets in, it can be jarring. For those who've outgrown this need, deleting social media becomes an act of self-liberation. They no longer want their confidence to be measured by digital applause. They rediscover self-worth through internal validation, by knowing who they are, regardless of whether anyone else notices. Next, there's a powerful shift in how they value their cognitive bandwidth. Social media constantly bombards users with information, opinions, trends, and arguments. Every scroll demands micro-decisions: what to read, what to like, what to ignore. Over time, this drains mental energy, even if we don't consciously realize it. People who delete social media often reach a point where they recognize their attention is one of their most precious assets. They begin to guard it more fiercely. Instead of letting algorithms decide what deserves their focus, they reclaim that control. Their minds feel less cluttered, more spacious, and better able to focus on deeper, more meaningful tasks. It's not about rejecting technology, it's about rejecting distraction. Another key reason behind this decision lies in rejecting digital conditioning and manipulation. Social platforms are engineered to keep us hooked, using psychology itself to trigger dopamine hits and reward loops. Notifications, infinite scrolling, and algorithmic recommendations are all designed to shape behavior. People who delete social media often do so after recognizing this subtle manipulation. They become aware of how their thoughts, emotions, and even beliefs are being influenced by unseen algorithms. They realize that the endless pursuit of engagement isn't natural, it's manufactured. So, in deleting social media, they aren't just stepping away from an app, they're stepping out of a system designed to exploit human attention. This act becomes an assertion of autonomy, a quiet rebellion against psychological manipulation. Then comes an interesting and powerful realization. Privacy feels more powerful than attention. In a culture that glorifies visibility, choosing to stay private becomes almost revolutionary. For years, social media has equated relevance with exposure. But people who delete their accounts begin to see the beauty of living without constantly being watched, judged, or compared. They value the calm that comes from keeping their lives to themselves. Privacy gives them a sense of safety and integrity, and they find peace in not needing to broadcast every thought or experience. The fewer people who have access to their personal life, the freer they feel. What used to feel like isolation now feels like empowerment. Another fascinating transformation happens when people shift from consuming to creating. When you're not spending hours scrolling through other people's lives, you suddenly gain back an enormous amount of time and creative energy. Many who delete social media don't disappear from the digital world entirely. They redirect that energy into building, learning, or creating something of their own. Instead of passively absorbing content, they become active participants in their own growth. This shift is deeply psychological. It moves the person from comparison to creation, from reaction to reflection. The act of creation strengthens identity and brings intrinsic satisfaction that no number of likes could replicate. Psychological detachment and peace are often the natural outcomes of this journey. When the noise of social media fades, the mind begins to settle. There's less pressure to perform, less fear of missing out, and more mental space for stillness. People often report feeling calmer, more focused, and more connected to real life, to conversations, hobbies, and relationships that exist offline. They become more present. The constant urge to check updates or validate their existence through posts begins to fade away. This detachment doesn't mean they stop caring about the world. It means they've learned to care differently, more consciously, and with better boundaries. Ultimately, deleting social media is rarely about hating it. It's more about choosing mental clarity over digital chaos. It's about wanting to be more intentional with one's time, emotions, and identity. For some, it's temporary, a digital detox to reset their mind. For others, it becomes a permanent lifestyle change that represents freedom. What's most interesting is that many people who delete social media don't necessarily become anti-technology. They simply develop a healthier relationship with it. They learn to use technology as a tool rather than being used by it. So, the psychology of people who delete social media is not about rejection, it's about evolution. It's about outgrowing dependence on digital validation, reclaiming attention, and rediscovering peace in privacy and authenticity. It's about making space for what truly matters: real connections, meaningful work, and a clear mind. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone